This is attorney Marc Lopez, and I am with my good friend, Kent Winingham. Kent, say good morning.
Good morning.
So we're recording this on May 5th. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
That's right.
I've been following along the news along with most people, and it seems that the most affected individuals with the coronavirus are people who are residing at nursing homes or long-term care facilities. And so one of the things that I want to talk to was my good friend, Kent. And Kent has done a lot of litigation fighting for people who have been injured in nursing homes. And he's not a medical doctor, but when you do these cases, when you work on cases, you get to know the subject matter. And I just thought I'd talk to him a little bit. And at some point, him and I decided we'd record this interview so others could listen. So Kent, that's the background. Give us a little background on you.
Sure. So I went to law school in Chicago, and I practiced in Chicago for a few years in predominantly nursing home negligence, in the area of nursing home negligence and medical malpractice. And that was really all I did for 2 or 3 years before moving back to Indianapolis, and joining Wilson Kehoe Winingham, where I now do about half my practice is general personal injury, and then the other half is medical malpractice and nursing home negligence. They're kind of nursing home negligence kind of falls within the area of medical malpractice. It's a subsect of it. So that's about half my practice, I would say.
Is nursing home negligence always medical malpractice?
That's a good question. It depends on who the facility is. So if the facility is what's considered a qualified healthcare provider, meaning they've opted into the Indiana's Department of Insurance to be what's called a qualified healthcare provider, then your act is most likely going to fall under the Medical Malpractice Act. It depends on the actions as well, what is at issue in terms of the actual conduct. But some of these nursing homes, really most of them are considered qualified healthcare providers. Some of them are not. So if you have a nursing home or assisted living facility that's not under the umbrella of the Indiana Department of Insurance, and it's not then thus a qualified healthcare provider, you file your case like any other civil case, and you pursue it as a negligence case, and it doesn't fall under the Medical Malpractice Act, but it's still considered a medical malpractice case. It just doesn't fall under that Medical Malpractice Act like it would if that facility was a qualified healthcare provider.
Okay. Would you prefer a case be under the Medical Malpractice Act or not under the Medical Malpractice Act?
No, the Medical Malpractice Act in Indiana makes things quite difficult for patients. It is incredibly patient adverse. It is a system where you've got to go through a medical review panel. Unsurprisingly, 85% of the time, the medical review panel finds against the patient. So that makes things doubly difficult. And under the Medical Malpractice Act, you're also capped. Your damages are capped as well. So it's a laborious process. Playing devil's advocate on the other side, people say it's great for physicians, and it can be, but it was really quite patient adverse. So it can be difficult to pursue a case under the Medical Malpractice Act, but that's all you're left with for the most part, typically.
Just for clarification, even if you win at the medical review panel, the case, it's not over.
Right. You're absolutely right. You win or lose. So it's 3 doctors or nurses or a combination of the 2 that are in that area of expertise. And they read your evidence and your materials and your deposition testimony if you've taken depositions, and then they render an opinion, either 2-1, 3-0, 0-3, as to whether the standard of care in your case was met or whether the standard of care wasn't met. That's not dispositive of the case, meaning your case, you don't win it, you don't lose it there. Oftentimes cases might get resolved at that point, but after that, you're moving on kind of to trial. And at that point, all of that process about the decisions of those 3 supposedly neutral parties, those are all admissible at trial. So you can talk about all that at trial as well. So that makes it, can make it harder for the plaintiff, or it can help your case if you have a panel that has agreed with you. So you're right. It doesn't mean your case is over with at all.
That is absolutely wild. It's like a mini trial to get to the trial. That just seems like so much extra work, especially for the consumer.
Well, it's a mini trial that is operated by other healthcare people in the world of healthcare judging other people in the world of healthcare. So we call it sometimes the fox guarding the hen house, but that's probably, maybe it's a little unfair.
I was going to say the cards were stacked against the plaintiff, but I like this, the fox guarding the hen house. Like, yeah. So when you have done these nursing home cases in the past, what are the typical things that you have seen and you have litigated?
Most of the cases, they tend to be, a lot of the cases, what they are, they're pressure ulcer cases. People develop bed sores on like their backside, their sacrums or their coccyx areas that I didn't even know what a bed sore was before I started this world. I thought maybe that was like a bug bite. I didn't know, but it's, someone's not being turned and repositioned and they're not getting treatment. They, to their skin treatment, their skin breaks down and they develop these horrible, horrible wounds and holes in their body that can really lead to death, and they're really painful. So those are some cases. Sometimes when people, they're supposed to have like a care plan in place because they're a fall risk, and they're supposed to have interventions in place, but sure enough, none of those interventions are in place. And then they do fall and they have, a brain injury and die, or they have they fractured their femur. Those are some common cases, or improper, medication administration, someone getting, excessive amounts of medication, when their medication administration record says they're supposed to get, 5 milligrams, but instead they get 20 milligrams 5 days in a row, and they have some sort of, cardiac event or other stroke or something. So cases they can be really different, but I would say those are kind of three of more common cases you might see.
And so just to jump on that bed sore, when you hear the word bed sore, you're like, oh, it can't be that bad. I have seen horrible bed sores. I feel like bed sores got off easy when it came to naming things. And so please don't let anyone listening to this think, oh, bed sore can't be that bad. They can turn terrible, just like Ken said, lead to infection, lead to death. Ken, when we are reading in the news about COVID-19 having a significant impact on people living in nursing homes or long-term care facilities, does that surprise you at all?
No, doesn't. It's this is the most at-risk population, and they're all housed under one roof. So it's some people are pretty frustrated about how long-term care facilities are handling this, and I do not blame them. They've really dropped the ball in a lot of cases, and at the same time, it's inevitable that sometimes these people they're gonna contract it. They're all under one roof. But so it's a double-edged sword, and it's sad to see, because this is the most high-risk population, and they're all in one facility together. So there are certainly a lot of things that can be done to separate people and to make sure you're providing a safe environment. But no, it's not surprising to me at all.
And it just seems like a cascading type effect. The things you've mentioned, not turning individuals, leading to bed sores, not following life care plans, not following medication routines, those things seem to me popping up as perhaps the facility is understaffed or poorly staffed. And it doesn't seem very like a long stretch that if those conditions existed to provide those possible issues, that they're going to have an increase in coronavirus tests, which has stated, I got some numbers earlier today, and this is May 5th, literally 1/3 of the deaths are at nursing homes. And that's absolutely devastating. And you read these articles, and whether paper or online, and you see family talking to their loved ones through these windows, and it just breaks your heart. It absolutely breaks your heart.
It does. And it's also, it's just, you see these healthcare workers in these facilities, like the CNAs, is what they call the, certified nursing assistants and nurses. They are, a lot of times you see they're at their wits' end, because they're not getting the support that they need. They're not getting, they don't have the staff that they need. So you're right. I think that it's kind of an exacerbation problem, right? It's you already have all these facilities typically are understaffed, and then you have something like this happen, and it really exposes that problem, and you're understaffing, and that issue exacerbates your pandemic issue within your facility even further. So it's just, it's kind of the worst of both worlds,
It sounds terrible, quite frankly. And other states, they're being a little bit more forthcoming in their reporting. Indiana is starting to change with some new rules this past Monday, but why is Indiana not being so forthcoming with their information regarding coronavirus in nursing homes?
You know, I I don't know, and it's frustrating. I have an idea why, and really the lack of communication is, to me, is scary for families, because it's, if you've got a loved one in a rehab facility, an assisted living facility, a nursing home, you're going to want to know what's going on there, and they can communicate that, the facility can, they can communicate that to you without violating HIPAA, without disclosing anyone's personal identifiable information. And they should, because they've got a duty to make sure that their residents are not at risk, as a result of other residents who are endangering them. So, and if that is the case, they've got to either inform the resident and or their guardian or their personal representative. So, I think that I don't think it's a coincidence that what you're seeing, and the Indy Star has done an unbelievable job in this, is that the states have a vested interest in these nursing homes. Over 90%, 93% of these nursing homes throughout the state of Indiana are county-owned facilities. They're owned by the state. So the state has a vested interest in keeping this information close to their vest. And there's been some really pretty exposing articles about the ownership of these facilities and how the state was able to kind of allocate funding. Really, they received Medicaid funding, and then the counties used it as they wish, and nursing home residents didn't get the benefit of the funding as they were intended. So I don't think it's a coincidence that kind of we're seeing these worlds colliding right now.
That sounds so horrible, man. That's absolutely insane. So the money that's supposed to be spent on them is not, and then obviously they're suffering for that.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that the 93% are owned by the state or the counties, does that also invoke the Tort Claim Act?
It doesn't typically. That's a good question. It doesn't typically, because most of these are qualified healthcare providers. So if you're a qualified healthcare provider, you're not dealing with the Tort Claims Act typically. So no. So if you're, for example, your Johnson County Hospital, Johnson County Memorial, DBA, X nursing home, you're likely to be a qualified healthcare provider, and thus you're not going to have the same tort immunity and Tort Claims Act issues that you might with a case against a city or county in another venue.
That's absolutely insane. Ken, if anybody had any questions, they want to talk to you about issues they're having with loved ones in nursing home, what is the best way to reach you, contact you?
Yeah, call me, email me. My phone number is 317-920-6409. And then my email is kwiningham, which is WININGHAM @wkw.com. These are strange times. These, the State Department of Health, I think they're doing their best, but it's just, I don't want to use the word unprecedented, because if I hear the word unprecedented one more time, I'm just going to flip, but it is that. So, I think our healthcare workers are doing everything they can, and it's just a tough time.
Thanks so much for spending some time with me this morning. I appreciate it.
Yeah,